In this stream, I am going to share some revelations that were provided to me by ayahuasca that I'm pretty confident are correct in regards to the atomic nature of the soul. It's very hermetic in the sense that it jives with the as above, so below concept. And what inspired this was a series of experiences that I had recently, mostly involving strangers, in very consistent fashion that suggests that there's a sort of soul family connection between myself and these people. So let's just jump right into the first story. First, I want to say that I'm having some trouble. My programs keep crashing, so hopefully we can make it through the stream. I apologize. It looks like we're having some lag, which is weird. Let me check something out real quick. Hopefully we can do this, you guys, because it's going to be a good story. Also, I want to let you guys know that the Peruvian Andean superfood salad video is completed, and I'm really excited about how it came out. This idea crazy. It says my internet speed is 250 right now, which is not even possible. Yeah, there's a ghost in the machine. Something really weird is going on. Oh, it looks like it crashed again. Yep. Reaper crash again. God damn it, what the hell is going on? Uh-oh, guys. Looks like we might be doomed. Damn. Hello, hello. Okay, but looks like this crashed as well. What the fuck is happening? Okay, let's give it a shot. I don't know. I think we're probably going to end up like maybe I have a virus or something. I don't really know what's going on. Okay, so first of all, I was at a club booking a gig about a week ago, and there's this guy, a Peruvian guy. It turned out he's a Peruvian school teacher. He just grabs me in the crowd, drags me outside, and he starts talking to me about all this metaphysical and occult stuff that is exactly the stuff that you find on this channel. I mean, down to the finest detail. And I'm kind of stunned, like, what just happened? You know, like, how did this guy know that I would know what he was talking about? You know, it's like he absolutely did know. And so I'm going to have coffee with him on Friday, and I'm going to try to get him to do an interview on the channel. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but I just want to preface this live stream with that story that, you know, that was really crazy. So I guess a few weeks later, my partner, you know, just arrived with a friend of hers from Colorado. And he and I got into this conversation the other night in the kitchen. And I discovered, for one thing, that what him and my partner have in common is that they were both raised by parents that were in a cult. And he started talking about the consequences of being raised in this cult and how he was constantly feeling ostracized, that people would ridicule him when he knew he was right. And the way he was talking about all this sounded exactly like my own experience with the culture at large, down to the extent that he was, you know, using sentences that were verbatim the same that I have used to describe my own experience with all of this. So fast forward another week to our patron-only voice chat, which, by the way, if you're a patron and you missed that, you should absolutely make the next one Monday at 7:30, because it was incredible. I was so blown away by the people in this community. but specifically one element of it. One of us is of Yaqui and Apache descent, and from Mexico. And another very close friend of mine that just sort of reemerged from 6 years in the past out of nowhere. That I actually witnessed one of the craziest UFO sightings that I could possibly conceive of with about 6 years ago. He is also of Yaqui and Apache descent, which is really strange. Like, how do I have two friends that are this weird mix of Yaqui and Apache? That's just really unusual, right? So he starts talking, and he has like a thick Mexican accent and completely different background from me. And he starts describing my childhood in this voice chat, how when he heard certain terms like shamanism or psychedelics, even as like a toddler, he would know that's important. And if you guys followed my content, you probably heard me talk about that, where the first time I heard the term Gnostic, it was like the gates of heaven opened up, and I went out on my porch. I was like 7 years old, and it's like, there are angels, and like, oh, and I was like, I'm a Gnostic. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew it was true. And so he starts describing all these experiences that directly mirrored my own. And then he tells me, I went to jail last year, and I just started watching your channel a lot. And he said he gets sent to cell block 13, and he goes in his cell, and there's "do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," and like all these other phrases, like graffitied on the jail cell wall that you would associate with my channel. So point being, I've been noticing lately these interactions with people around me. Illuminostic Life was in there, and she was killing it too. She was like super quiet, and somebody would say something, and it's like she would just come up out of the mist and make a diamond pure comment and then recede back into the background. So yeah, you guys, don't miss these Discord voice chats on Monday. I think, hopefully we're going to have Julie in there, who is one of maybe the best conversation I've ever had in my life. He has 2 PhDs, one in psychology and the other in physics, I think. And he called me up one day and he's like, hey, I just did something kind of crazy, but you need to come over and try it. And I was like, what? And he's like, drink ayahuasca and then inject ketamine. And I was like, that sounds like sacrilege. But because of his double PhD status, I was like, this kind of opportunity doesn't come up all often. So I did it, and we ended up having one of the most extraordinary, if not the most extraordinary metaphysical conversations I've ever had in my life. So what this all reminded me of was this experience that I had on ayahuasca many years ago. And my mom had just died, and it was the first ayahuasca experience that I'd had since her death. There was actually 2, and it was a really rough style, the Shuar style, where you fast for days and very little water even, very little sleep as well. And so the first night, after hiking through the muddy, mountainous, because it's like high jungle, so you're in the mountains, everything is steep, but it's a rainforest, so it's 2 feet of mud. I actually got stuck in quicksand, and the group was way up ahead of me in a Toei forest, Brumansia. So as far as I can see, there's just these sort of sinister-looking, beautiful Brumansia flowers hanging everywhere. I mean, it was a huge Brumansia forest. And the group had gotten a little bit ahead, and I stepped in this quicksand and sunk almost immediately up to my waist. So there's no one to help me, and I had to claw my way out of it. It was pretty wild. So, point being, I was extremely exhausted. Get back up to the house where we're having the ceremony. It's a very rustic house, no electricity or anything, but we're on the deck. And I'm thinking, because my mom had just committed suicide, that it's going to be a really, really hard ayahuasca experience. Because not only did she commit suicide, I had a terrible final interaction with her. So, I was carrying a very heavy burden into this experience. And so I hope I'm not clipping. You guys let me know if I'm clipping, because I'm really having a lot of trouble with this computer today. So let me check and make sure that the sound is all right. It's too bad we don't have a few more people, because this is going to be a really wild story. So it looks like, oh my God, it did it again. Well, at least nothing crashed this time. All right, so I fixed the clipping. Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know what's going on. There's a serious bug in my computer. Okay, so the first night, drink the ayahuasca, it's really easy. Nothing crazy happens, and I'm thinking I'm off the hook. Second night, we wake up, we hike through the jungle again, we drink a small amount of ayahuasca before we go hiking to connect us with the jungle. Completely exhausted, no food in 2 days. So we drink the medicine, and this time it's intense. And there's a circle of spirit beings dancing around me, and they are more clear than I've ever seen them before in my life. And suddenly, my mom comes flying down out of the stars. The spirit beings turn to demons. A lot of you guys that follow me have heard this story, I'm sure. And there's like blue flames coming out of her eyes, and it was terrible. You're not supposed to, in the Shuar tradition, you are not supposed to ever curl up into the fetal position during an ayahuasca ceremony, and for the first time I did it. I just, like a baby, I just couldn't handle it. And my partner, I kept like bugging her, trying to get like some kind of affection or something, and she's totally ignoring me. Later, she told me, I asked her, why was that? And she said, because we were surrounded by skeletons and death. And so that was wild. That was actually also the time that I saw her. One of the spirit beings was female, and she sat up and they reached for each other, and at the last second, the spirit being was like, psych, don't touch me, mortal, and then she looked all dejected and laid back down. So it was really intense. So eventually this vision faded, and I went out into the jungle to get a hold of myself. And I smoked some apacho and, had a conversation with my mom's spirit. And then I started walking back to the house to lay down again. And Pachamama says, I have something to tell you. Your mom didn't go into the stars, she went into Enrica's womb. And then 10 days later, we found out she was pregnant. But there's something, every time I've told this story, I think, I didn't talk about this part, which is maybe the most interesting aspect of it. And it could potentially explain like soul family and twin flame and tell us a little bit about how reincarnation works. And it ties in with the idea of as above, so below, right? The idea that there's a fundamental structure to everything. We see it in the Fibbonacci sequence. And I think that we sort of perceive the Fibbonacci sequence as manifesting in seashells and galaxies. But it's my opinion that this structure underlies time and history and, the totality of creation, not just the physical structure of things. And so another great illustration of as above, so below is that if you shrink down so that you're the same size relative to the nucleus of an atom that you are to the Earth relative to the Earth right now, there's about the same distance between you and the nearest proton as there is now from you to the moon. I suspect that this also is the key to the theory of everything, connecting the macro or the quantum physics to the quantum mechanics to quantum relativity or general relativity. Big physics, little physics. I don't know why I'm not able to organize these thoughts at the moment. Man, I can't believe we only have 3 people in here. That's crazy. Oh my God, I'm still clipping again? Man, you guys, I hope I don't have a virus or something. Well, maybe that's an old comment. By the way, you guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron because I'm demonetized and I get no support otherwise. So support is awesome. So what was I saying here? Okay, so as above, so below, right? And ayahuasca says I can actually explain to you why that happened or how this works. And she said, in the same way that you have, you know, an atom and you have a nucleus, and then you have protons and electrons and neutrons spinning around this nucleus, souls are the same way. So every single lifetime, your mom and your brothers and your best friends and all of this soul family are the same souls spinning around this nucleus that is the common denominator, or the bond that holds everyone together. And, you know, that really struck me as, it absolutely makes sense, you know. And it's interesting to note that if that's the case, Nagual is a boy, but my mom was a woman. And then, though, if you consider the history of my mother as a severe sexual abuse victim, it makes sense that in the sense of the metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul, that part of her process would be to heal her relationship with the masculine by being incarnated as a male. Really, really wild stuff. And part of the reason that I decided to jump on and share that is that I have a funny feeling that this is going to happen to all of us that are on this path with increasing frequency and intensity. You know, there are higher orders of symmetry, and I think that when you are aligned with this certain vibratory signature, you know, you are going to experience these things in aggregate. And there's no doubt that we are entering into a unique time in history. I haven't looked into it yet, but I saw a bunch of warnings on YouTube that the United States is preparing for war. And there are also a lot of people of like mind migrating to the Sacred Valley right now. And, you know, I mean, I feel like it's almost redundant or unnecessary to tell you guys that, you know, something is very significant is happening. And after that voice chat and the experiences that I've had with people in person lately, it's really obvious that the coagulation of, you know, pods of atomic soul family is something that is definitely occurring. And on that note, I would also like to share with you guys that one of the benefits of being here in the Sacred Valley is that I have access to, for example, something called, oh my God, don't tell me that I'm not going to, Kushuro, which is a blue-green algae that is found in the pristine high country Andean lakes. And research is showing that it is has more protein than meat. It is the most digestible form of protein. It strengthens basically every system in your entire body. We also have access to a lot of wild crafted foods. And, you know, even just having the intent that I am going to optimize all of the systems in my body, right? Brain, muscle, you know, everything, heart health. I have been going to the markets and just intuitively buying like certain types of meat, certain types of fish eggs, this algae, seaweed, all of these things, and then doing the research and discovering that these are exactly the foods that are needed to optimize all of the systems that I'm trying to optimize. And you guys will see with this upcoming Andean superfood salad video that I just made, how incredibly that's going. And I just really want to encourage, I don't know how long the mic is a little choppy. It's happened again. Yeah, sorry guys, my system is losing its mind. Like settings are changing on their own, programs are crashing. I must have a virus. And then when it says that my internet speed is like 300 or whatever, that's just not even possible. So something is wonky. No, it says everything is fine. None of my settings are off. Are you sure it's choppy? Okay, so for those of you that are just popping on, I mean, I basically already gave the breakdown of the atomic soul and the message from ayahuasca. So if you're curious about that, you can go back and check it out. So, I mean, I have more time, so if you guys would like to do any AMA, I'm down to try to answer questions. Partly I'm here just trying to convey that I'm excited because, we are living in a time of tremendous catastrophe. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, and I just froze again, didn't I? No, I didn't. Man, I feel like I probably should just pop off and try to figure out what in the hell is going on with my computer. Because it is really driving me insane. So, yeah, all right, let me check in with the chats and see if you guys... Yeah, you guys have any questions, any AMA, we can keep this going a little bit. I mean, we have a very small audience tonight, so if we don't, I'm just going to, if nobody has anything that they would like to talk about, then I'm just going to troubleshoot my computer and see what the fuck is going on. What do you use for the visualizer in the background? I don't even know. I found some DMT simulation somewhere like years ago, and I've just had it in the background there. Yeah, so does there exist an herb or supplement that alters your natural scent? Yeah, the one in my mouth, actually. All herbs alter your natural scent. And there's, functions for that. There's a plant called a plantain. It's not the banana, but it's a small leafy green with a single seed pod that comes up out of the middle. And if you eat 4 of those or so, mosquitoes won't bite you because you exude a smell that repels them. And coca actually cleans your system so well that if you chew a bunch of it, you'll stink like really bad. Like you'll have like the worst body odor ever because your body is flushing all of these nasty toxins out of your system. So, all right, anything else, you guys? One more time, don't miss the patron-only voice chats because they were absolutely amazing the other night. Illuminostic Life can tell you that. Second that. Notion. All right, so questions. Question and answer. Going once, going twice. Nothing, nobody? Man, why do we have so few? I was really confident that this was going to be... Oh, here we go. How are you enjoying your new setting? Man, Cusco area, the Sacred Valley, is absolutely amazing. I mean, there are so many extraordinary things all around all the time, and the ruins here are absolute mysteries. Nobody knows why. You can check out my video on this, but there are these stone, they're not really structures, they're just like stone areas, and the stones will be perfectly unnaturally flat on the top, and they also have like weird indentations and like holes in them that obviously held something, and nobody has any idea what the hell they were for. Right? Like it would have been so much work, and there are like miles and miles and miles of them. And then some of them, there are like underground cavern chambers where there are still found elongated skulls because the Peruvian government hasn't really bothered to excavate a lot of this stuff. And deep in these caverns sometimes, there are these vitrified areas where the stone has been heated to some extraordinarily high temperature to the extent that it turns to glass on the outer layer. And there's like no way, to get that kind of heat source that far underground that anyone can imagine. So right in my backyard, there are several ruins going up the hill. Across the cliff, there are giant, it looks like a castle, but they're just like grain storage areas. I'm trying to get together funding for a trip to Temple of the Sun, which I've heard is better than Machu Picchu, and it's relatively unknown. And then, we have extraordinary food. This algae that comes from the high country lakes that I was talking about, it's probably the best food source on Earth, not just in terms of nutrients, but there are like phytochemicals, phytonutrients, and cyanobacteria, and all sorts of stuff that, you guys watch the video. I put links to all of the information. The retreat is going to be, I'm going to do a poll and let you guys decide, but either July, mid-July, or mid-August, and it's going to be amazing because we're going to go on hikes to these ruins. We'll eat San Pedro chocolates and go out and that's just for a light hiking dose. We'll have Wilca and Yopo. It's definitely going to be extraordinary. My viewpoint on MDMA as medicine. MDMA is incredible. I am not one of those hippies. I'm not a hippie at all, but I'm definitely not one of those hippies that believes that anything made by man is inherently bad. In fact, I think that LSD, which is actually semi-synthetic, if you follow the original recipe, is proof that man can collaborate with nature and produce something extraordinary. In fact, for a lot of applications that require enhanced neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, LSD is actually more efficacious than DMT or psilocybin. So, MDMA is unparalleled in its ability to heal relationships. Something like 85% of, couples that are on the verge of divorce, there's some criteria for this study. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the number of couples that was still together 5 years later with MDMA therapy was 85% higher than without. And the first time I took MDMA in my life, I made a bunch of decisions that I was going to, for example, go to college for information systems technology. I didn't stick with I didn't get a degree, but I did follow through on every single thing that I realized I needed to do during that MDMA experience. So unlike the other classic indulging hallucinogens or psychedelics, it is more toxic and it should be used more sparingly and less often, but it is extremely useful, I think, for just about any person. All of these things have different applications, and they're all tremendously useful. Personally, I like to combine 50-50 MDMA with sassafras. I think that's the optimal way to use it. And sassafras has MDA. The MDA cluster is, I think, 12 different drugs that are all related to MDA, and they all have different effects. The worst of them is DOM, also called Serenity, Tranquility, and Peace, which is not a good name for it. It's a 72-hour trip, and it's sort of like combining, they say MDMA with LSD, but I think it would be more accurate to say MDMA, LSD, and methamphetamine. So, that's the real problem. After about 48 hours of tripping, you're sleep deprived and tripping, so big risk. Sorry about the coca, guys. I'm pretty tired, so it's either coca, chewing, or no stream. Ethan is asking me about Billy Carlson. He is full of shit. He is extraordinarily full of shit. He is a liar. And I think what happens with a lot of these people, and this is true of Terrence McKenna, it's true of who's that conspiracy theorist guy? I'm Alex Jones and I'm a big fat dumbass, blah, 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 blah. When they run out of stuff to say that's legitimate, they just start making shit up. And I think that's what happened with Billy Carlson. Probably 5 or 6 years ago when I first discovered him, I saw a couple of clips and I was like, wow, there's somebody else out there that is, aware of the same kind of stuff that I am and kind of like coming from the same angle on it and all that. And then increasingly, he's just off the deep end with all sorts of ridiculous bullshit. Check in with the other chat real quick. Am I still scamming people? Can you elaborate on that? How exactly did I scam anyone ever? I'm really curious. Going once, going twice. Yeah, I mean, anytime that anyone has given me anything, they get whatever they want in return, so I don't know how that's... I mean, you guys can go to my Facebook page, and there's nothing but 5-star reviews for all of my services, so I'm not really sure. Why not just snort the coca? Because cocaine, in its pure form, is a completely different animal. The coca leaf, actually, by weight, is one of the most nutrient-dense plants on Earth. It might even be number one, except maybe this blue-green algae, but in vitamins and minerals. And it has all sorts of alkaloids that, clean the blood. And, I mean, it's just an extraordinary plant. And in the leaf form, it contains 1% or less of cocaine. So there is cocaine in it, but snorting cocaine as opposed to chewing coca is like the difference between riding a bicycle and flying in a jet plane. So it's not really a legitimate comparison. So, any more questions? Occult, metaphysics, plant medicine, as you wish. Going once, going twice. I have no idea who Robert Edward Grant is, but I'll definitely look him up and see. Take on flat Earth. It is a tremendously dumb idea. There are certain criteria that allow a conspiracy theory to, survive scrutiny. The first rule is, does it require too many conspirators? So if you consider just the simple fact that satellite companies, pilots, engineers, the list is incredibly long. It would require so many people to be in on the conspiracy and complicit that it is not possible. Just that fact alone makes the idea so goddamn stupid that it's not worthy of consideration. Then you can look around the universe with a telescope and you can see all of these spheres. And a little bit of research into physics will, explain to you why it is that all of these objects throughout the entire universe, all these celestial bodies, are spheres. This flat Earth movement, I believe, is actually a psyop. It's propaganda. The point of it is to associate people that think outside of the box and that question mainstream narratives with completely moronic, drooling morons. And a lot of it is religiously motivated. I did a debate with a flat earther. I was actually tricked. They offered me money because they knew that I was associated with Freemasonry and Gnosticism and all these things that Christians consider evil and satanic. And So they baited me with money, and it was insane. It was like a revival tent full of born-again fundamentalist Christian right-wing lunatics. And at one point, my debate partner said, "The sun is electric, you can tell by looking at it." And at that point, I was pretty much done. But they actually had a guy that was legitimately a mercenary. My 6-month-old was in the front row being held by my partner, right? And this guy's walking up to the table and threatening me to distract me from the debate because I was destroying this flat earther so badly. He threatened an 80-year-old cancer patient who had come to support me. And incredibly, somebody from this YouTube community had come down from California to see this, and he witnessed all this stuff. It was completely insane. There were death threats, and no, flat Earth is completely goddamn stupid, and it's not a matter of having to trust scientists. And you know what? One of the things that I'm the most proud of that I've inspired in a lot of the people in this community, the reality is, if you don't want to trust scientists, you can just learn how the stuff works and check it yourself. And in the case of flat Earth, you can actually use your eyes and common sense to determine that it's not a plausible theory. You know, there are so many ways. I almost just quoted that Perfect Circle song. There are so many ways I can show you how your God has abandoned you. You know, what was that, Judith? So yeah, I mean, you know, it's just completely stupid. So this guy whose name appears to be maybe given to him by Elon Musk in the shorts feed, he says that he believes Terence McKenna was genuinely trying to figure out the time wave thing. Unfortunately, that's almost definitely not true. And for those of you that are just popping on, the reason that's coming up is because I was talking about how a lot of these guys, like, who was that black guy that we were talking about, Billy Carlson, the reason that they go off the deep end is because they run out of legitimate things to talk about, so they just start making up stupid shit. Graham Hancock has even done that. In fact, Graham Hancock, as much as he comes off as an expert, I actually caught him, he did a video about the prophecy of Thoth, I think is, pretty sure that's it. It's a really amazing prophecy, and it really is old, and that part of it is real, and it's pretty mind-blowing. But he was saying that it was Egyptian. It's from the book of Asclepius, which is 100% Greek. And so, you know, if you're a fan of his, you have to realize the reason that he didn't care to do enough research and to get things correct is that he knows that most of his audience won't do their own research, they don't know, and they're not going to check. So, you know, he doesn't even bother to make sure he knows what he's talking about. And if I was a fan of his, I would find that extremely condescending, you know. So the Terence McKenna thing, I'll explain. Yeah, I do. I am not a licensed therapist, but you can watch reviews of the counseling, the consultations that I do, and get an idea of the kind of impact that they've had on people. So Terence McKenna, his time wave zero mathematics, basically, I think what happened is that he thought that because of his association with psychedelic drugs that no one would do it, and he challenged the, you know, straight mathematical community to check his equations, fully probably believing that he would be ignored, and some mathematician did it. And he actually confronted Terence afterwards because he discovered that not only were the time wave equations not correct, Terence had deliberately reversed a bunch of numbers in order to make it appear that they worked. And it was 100% deliberate. So the entire time that Terence was up there trying to convince us that 2012 was this, you know, fifth dimensional portal or whatever the hell, you know, that our imagination was going to start manifesting as fast as we could think of things, he knew that he had faked the mathematics, and he deceived all of his followers. So, it's really something to be aware of, that even the best of these people have demonstrated some pretty tremendous faults. And it's something that, as a person that is exploring metaphysics and, I've spent decades researching the occult and all kinds of different traditions and living in the jungle with indigenous people studying ayahuasca and everything. I'm aware. Crash again. Let me see if I can fix this. Man, what is going on? Okay, so that's fixed. Now Reaper appears to have crashed as well. Man. Oh boy. There's all kinds of weird windows opening and stuff. This is not good. Just a minute, guys. Let me make sure that everything is kosher. Should be fixed. But what I was saying is that, I am very diligent about evaluating everything that I say and put out there. And I don't hate Terence McKenna. I'm not saying that he wasn't brilliant. I'm not saying he didn't do anything good for the world. In fact, I think he helped someone like myself to be aware of the potential for ego to corrode a person, and just kind of made me more aware of the potential for abuse of power and the possibility of ego inflation and all that sort of thing. Robert Gilbert, I'm afraid I have never heard of him. But since you're asking about sacred geometry, I can offer something that I think is, oh my God, did I already freeze again? No. What in the hell, man? My window is frozen here, but it's not frozen. This is just ridiculous. So I talk about this a lot, but it's the best illustration of this that I'm aware of. When any kind of magician or shaman or practitioner of any kind of ritual magic opens a ceremony, there's generally a circle that is either cast or drawn on the floor or somehow delineated. And that circle basically represents the microcosm or the environment that the magician has dominion over. He is determining which forces may enter and which forces may not. And the forces that he does not wish to enter into his universe are held at bay by the protective circle, right? And then generally there is an acknowledgement of some kind of the four corners, because four is a number of stability, like four legs on a chair. So the four fundamental forces of physics give the universe stability, right? And cohesion and symmetry. And so when the magician is standing in the center now of this square inside of a circle, when he invokes a fifth element, that of light or spirit, above, and you draw lines from the four corners above him, this is consciousness. So if you think of the image of the all-seeing eye above the pyramid, all of a sudden there's a deeper level revealed, that it is the introduction of consciousness that creates a habitable universe and gives rise to life and some sort of function and makes it something more than just a flat 2D plane. And so when you're talking about sacred geometry or thinking about it, it's not just that these symbols have some sort of import because they exist. There should be some sort of function to them that can be understood. You should see a reflection in nature that validates them. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess. So, any other, also, I like Aubrey Marcus and Matthias DeStefano. Aubrey Marcus is more or less sincere, I think. There was something that happened some number of years ago that ruffled my feathers. I don't recall exactly what it was, but yeah, I think more or less he's trying to do good things in the world. And in my opinion, that's good enough, I can't honestly say that I follow him. I don't really know his work inside and out. But, I think his heart's in the right place for what it's worth. Okay, so a few more minutes if you guys have any other questions or subjects you would like me to riff on. I need to figure out why my system keeps crashing and do something about it before tomorrow comes. So going once, going twice. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider joining our Patreon because we are building a tremendous community and you get access to that at the $10 tier or higher, and also my Forbidden Knowledge streams where we have been going through a formerly secret book of Freemasonry called Morals and Dogma with a fine-tooth comb and extracting all the knowledge and secrets that we can. So, one more time. After this crypto cycle, I want to donate some money to you. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we appreciate support. We're demonetized, so my videos get lower priority in the algorithm, and all my support comes from the community. And luckily, I have a very, very supportive and strong community here that I am eternally grateful for. Did my family reunite? It depends on what you mean by that. Without getting into the personal nitty-gritty details, they are here, my partner and my son. Exactly what the future holds for us is not clear still at this particular juncture. So, but, the lucky thing about building transcendental experiences into your life, I talk about flow state lifestyle, right? So that you're in flow state in macro rather than in these minutiae where you're improvising on an instrument or you're doing freestyle on a BMX bike or whatever it is. You basically engineer your life around flow state triggers so that you're in flow state in macro. And so one of the benefits of doing that is that you're not petty and you're not vindictive and you tend to be reasonable and rational and forgiving and empathetic. And so regardless of, the status of my partner and I's relationship, we continue to be loving and understanding, and we don't necessarily we're not going to fall into the toxic enemy kind of dynamic that a lot of people do when they separate, if that is what is happening. So very grateful that is a dimension in our lives, because the matrix mentality is pure evil, and without expanded consciousness and exposure to transcendental states, people are not whole. You do not have a holistic being. You have not integrated your shadow. You have not found the stone of the wise, the philosopher's stone, and so you are adrift in irrationality and sort of the animal level of the soul, and there's a lot of bullshit that comes with that. Do I invest in crypto? I mean, I would, but the last year or so has not been kind to me. So I'm not really in a position to. If you're asking me what I would buy if I had capital for that, AI cryptos are going to explode. That's where all the hype is, and that's, you know, that's the next gold mine, I think. So one of the things that I can recommend that you do is use ChatGPT 4 to to vet tokens, and you can actually check the developer's background. You can check market conditions. You can check the performance of coins that are similar. I mean, I have a video in my Patreon actually where this guy goes through this entire list of prompts that you can feed ChatGPT in order to ensure that it thoroughly vets the tokens. The thing is, you have to also do a manual vetting because AI still hallucinates. So, for example, I did a dry run where I didn't invest any money and I just checked a bunch of tokens and they were all correct. But the next time I asked, it gave me a bunch of scam tokens because there was some hallucination and it did the opposite of what it was supposed to do. So, you know, just vetting them with AI is not enough. You actually have to go through and, you know, go through the manual vetting process as well. What's going on, JD? Always good to see you're still around, buddy. Hope you can make it down here. We're planning on having an event either July, mid-July, or August. And this is one of my favorite places I've ever been in my life. I mean, the people in my neighborhood are amazing and welcoming and friendly. And, you know, the outdoors is amazing. There is psychoactive plant material everywhere. You know, we have clip daga. It's the most common weed next to San Pedro. The hillsides around my house are completely blanketed in Peruvian torch and a couple of other strains of San Pedro cactus. So it's really a tremendous place, and you're just always surrounded by mystery. And you know, there's gemstones in the mineral deposits. There's the ruins in Maras are like concentric circles. No one knows why they're there or what they were for. The Incan salt mines, you know, like there's just so much stuff here. And a lot of it is off the radar. You know, you can go out to ruins and drink San Pedro, and you can go in them, and people haven't really vandalized them for the most part. They're generally intact, and there's no graffiti. And you can just go there alone, even at night if you want, build a fire and drink ayahuasca or whatever. I'm actually really well educated in the crypto market, been a BT holder since 2013. Well, that's good to hear, man. I mean, the crypto thing has been a little bit of a disappointment for me because the greed mentality that people have kind of defeats the purpose. You know, if people can't find solidarity and agree, like this is the token we're going to buy, and everyone's going to hold, you know, for some period of time. The idea that we're going to overthrow the banks and all that stuff is a pipe dream, you know. Somehow, some way, enough people have to get on the same page with a unified will and a unified mission. Otherwise, it's just, you know, if we have 100,000 tokens and everybody sells every time there's a little bit of fear, it's never going to yield the promise that us revolutionaries had hoped that it would. So, you know, we have to find unification and solidarity. Otherwise, we are divided, or united we stand, divided we fall. And, you know, we're at the most divided that we have ever been, certainly in my lifetime. So for those of you just hopping on, we're in the AMA section, the mode of the stream. So if you guys have anything that you would like me to riff on, if I can illuminate you, I certainly will try, but you have to give me topics at this point because, let's see, your stoicism has helped me much in the market. Yep, stoicism. I was like, my stoicism. Yeah. Well, beyond Stoicism, it's a unified sense of purpose that we're lacking. Somebody has to create something that really draws people together with a purpose. One of my main missions in life is to help people to overcome the crisis of purpose. I think that is like the fundamental problem in modern society. It's like religion was obviously stupid and damaging, and atheism not atheism, but abject materialism is also not good. Both of these things are traps that lock people into certain modalities that are not helpful for them or anyone else. And so, especially with the abject materialism, people just kind of have this crisis of purpose. No one knows why they're here or what they're doing. So there's sort of a vapid hedonism that has developed in our society. And so the oceans are testing positive for benzodiazepines, and the river Thames is testing positive for cocaine, and people are shooting up schools and all this stuff. And really the fundamental reason for it is this crisis of purpose. So any movement any person needs purpose. Any movement needs a unified purpose, And ultimately, the globe has to have a unified purpose. A lot of people don't realize this, but the original Illuminati, the one founded by Adam Weishaupt, was not about controlling the world exactly. It was about revolutionizing consciousness and getting rid of borders and religion in order to unify the planet under a rational, illuminated kind of state of consciousness. And that has to happen. Otherwise, we are doomed. So, no problem, Ethan. I appreciate you, man. Sounds like there's a magical community setting it into now. Yeah, I'm thinking probably August. People generally seem to need about 3 months to get it together. And it won't be very big. I have found a venue, the Blue Lotus in Pisac. And it's basically going to consist of San Pedro. We're going to focus on Andean medicines like Wilca and San Pedro. It'll probably be at least one ayahuasca ceremony. We'll spend some days just working on ritual magic in the Illuminist tradition, and also hiking to a lot of ruins. And we'll probably take a trip to Manu as well, which is the most pristine jungle area in Peru, where the jaguars are still healthy population. The monkey population is good, and there are giant anacondas in the whole 9 yards. So, yeah. All right, guys, do we have any more AMA topics? I think you should do a collab with Chad. Yeah, I'll check it out. I don't know who that is. I'm actually going to be a guest on the Philosophical Minds podcast soon, the next couple of weeks, I think. How do I receive donations? I receive them through Cash App, cryptocurrency, PayPal, Zelle, and you can also join the Patreon. Here are all of the addresses that you can offer support. We certainly appreciate it because demonetization has also deprioritized me, so it's difficult to keep this channel afloat, and also to fund the mini docs that I want to make about the ruins. Here I have a local expert and author. I made one video with her, but I had sleep deprivation and the camera work was terrible. But the point being that when I go out on these things, I need to pay for the transportation. I have to pay for an assistant. I have to pay for the expert, and the entrance and all that stuff. So there are expenses that come with this stuff. And being demonetized, I rely entirely on y'all ninjas to keep me moving. Do we have any more topics or questions? Give you guys a few minutes to pop something in the chat, and if nothing pops up, then I'm going to have to do a virus check and see what the fuck is going on with my computer. There should be a music stream tomorrow night, by the way, and I do have some new songs, so if you're into psychedelic rock, come and say hello. Okay, guys, questions and topics going once, going twice. Inevitably, as soon as I hit the end stream button, a bunch of questions pop up in the chat. Just a split second too late. Do you mind if I use sound bites for making videos? Absolutely not. Go ahead, just credit me. Put my link somewhere. Yeah, I did see that. I didn't know it was you. I appreciate you, man. We definitely need support in order to justify continuing this project, my YouTube channel. Yeah, I did see the last one you made, and you put me in good company too. I did like the company that you stuck me with. All right, so one more time, going once. Thoughts on My Big Toe by Thomas Campbell. Never heard of it. Sorry, Ethan. I know a lot about Joseph Campbell, but I don't know anything about the Big Toe. All right, going once, going twice, 3 times. All right, guys, so wait, what is this? Everyone share this channel. It's really exceptional content. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate those of you that have been around for years supporting us. It's really wild. I've really watched people develop and grow and transform, and having any kind of hand in that at all is infinitely rewarding. So definitely appreciate all of you guys. How did you get into the information? Was that before or after psychedelics? Well, what's going on, Long Chicken? Honestly, it's... Oh, yeah. Theory of Everything. I didn't realize that was the reference. I was actually... out of normal classes, pretty young. They tested my... I was put in gifted and talented programs where I was kind of allowed to study according to my own ingenium instead of having a curriculum shoved down my throat. And, I kind of grew up looking at all the people around me and thinking, like, how can they just work, eat, sleep, shit, and die without asking all these questions that I can't stop thinking about? And that was kind of my, disposition as young as I can remember. So, one of my earliest experiences that I now realize was like way out of pocket for a 6-year-old or whatever. I saw a grasshopper in the backyard and looked it dead in the eyes, and this voice in my head said, "Before the end of time, you will have lived a lifetime as every ant, every grasshopper, every plant, every sentient being in the entire universe, an entire lifetime as every single living thing that ever will exist all throughout time and space." And of course, now I realize that was a ridiculous fucking thing for a 6-year-old to be thinking, So it was well before psychedelics, and I actually, here, I'll fix that real quick. Man, what in the fuck is going on with my computer? I actually began studying psychedelics, at least book study, extremely young as well, because of the accidental introduction of a book called Flowering Plants into the elementary school library in 6th grade, I think, or 5th grade. And from there, I found Timothy Leary and Terence McKenna and the Psychedelics Encyclopedia, and it looks like my Reaper also crashed, so let me get that sound back. Man, this is messed up. I must have a virus. Yep. All right. Shit, man. Why does it always have to freeze on some goofy ass image too? Yeah, I do have a Discord. You can find it in the description below. And we do patron-only chats every Monday night, and you also get access to 5 years of secret streams and other patron-only videos on shamanism and ritual magic and all this stuff and you can guitar lessons. Well, let's see. One Immaculate says that he appreciates that I break things down into such simple units. And Bob Marley once said that if wisdom cannot be understood by a young child, then it's not real wisdom. And so that's, when I'm always talking about how a lot of these gurus and people like Terrence McKenna and Billy Carlson, or Carson, whatever his name is, they always end up, going off the deep end because they run out of stuff to talk about. The well of spirituality is subjectively deep, but it is not objectively deep. There's only so much that can be said about it. Our consciousness comes from light. We can be certain of that because there's no other culprit that's possible, we are the sensory organs of the universe. There is a lot of occult science that is demonstrable, right? Like, for example, that everything contains its contradiction. If you multiply or divide by 0, you find that infinity is contained in 0. Even the glyph of 0 has an infinite line around the outside and then nothingness in the center. This kind of stuff, every number is infinite. You can divide them forever. And that shows you that the all is in the all, because if something contains infinity, it contains infinity. You know what I mean? So beyond these like fundamental bits of knowledge that are actually like ascertainable and demonstrable, your success is your proof. There's really not that much, It's really like once you have the foundation set and you have integrated and you have gone through the process of psychoanalysis and you have activated the dormant parts of the brain with psychedelics and breath work and whatever else, there's not really so much that anyone can tell you. In fact, there are limits to how much people should tell you, because it's really important that you have internal experiences that have not been informed by someone else, because then you know that they were real. In my life, I was lucky enough that a lot of these things were that happened to me before I read about them, right? Like from a very young age, I knew that Carl Jung was important, but I didn't know why. Every time I saw his books, I was like, that's important. But I never looked until after I had experienced a huge string of synchronicities, and then I discovered that Carl Jung was the person that, you know what I mean? So it was really important that I experienced these things before it was put in my mind, because as a skeptical, critical thinker, I would have to live with the doubt that I had experienced these things just because it was planted in my head. I also had 1111 synchronicities that were just off the charts insane before I ever knew that 1111 was a thing, So, and that's honestly one of the reasons for secrecy in Freemasonry and other fraternities. It's not about keeping knowledge, it is about keeping knowledge from the profane, to the extent that some of this knowledge is very easily abused and misappropriated, and in the wrong hands, it's a disaster. But it's also to protect the initiate from contamination, so that you have direct experience that has not been informed by someone that you have respect for or someone that you consider a guru. So some degree of editing is a responsibility of any adept or person who has advanced in any legitimate chain of initiation. Any mainstream people that I admire? There used to be. There used to be. Robert Anton Wilson is someone that I have tremendous respect for. I think it's a huge tragedy that he's kind of been forgotten. The Illuminatus trilogy is one of the most mind-blowing works that humanity has ever created. In fact, it has the only example of precognition that is 100% verifiable, because in the book he put an Illuminati pyramid at the near the Mariana Trench, and he gave the coordinates, and this book was published in 1977. The pyramid was found in 2003, right before he died. You can actually find an interview where they ask him about it on YouTube. And he also, in that book, wrote about how the United States government was attacking their own buildings in order to justify drafting legislation that would take rights away from the citizenry, 1977. So, and there's a lot of stuff like that in his work. And then there's the nonfiction like Prometheus Rising and Schrodinger's Cat, Masks of the Illuminati, Cosmic Trigger 1, The Final Secret of the Illuminati, where he claimed to be in contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence from Sirius. After the book was published, his daughter was beaten to death, and he started saying that the book was nonsense and that he had lost his mind. I suspect that he did that to protect his other daughter, because if you read that book, you will not, it does not come off as the ravings of an unhinged mind at all whatsoever, not even a little bit. So, and then on top of that, I've had experiences where I drank ayahuasca once, and I was given a bunch of information about a third celestial body in the Sirius star system that did not become a red dwarf star because of the influence of the other two stars and remained a gas giant. And 5 days after the ayahuasca ceremony, a paper was published that said that they were pretty sure that it's a gas giant that didn't become a red dwarf because of the influence of the other two stars. I've never studied astrophysics. There's no way that I would have just made that shit up on my own, right? So after that, I found out that the Kofan, which is a tribe in southern Ecuador, also claimed to be in contact with beings from Sirius when they drink ayahuasca. The Hopi and the Blue Star prophecy, right? The Freemasons, the Blue Star in the lodge is Sirius, and both the Hopi and the Freemasons identify other keepers of the secret knowledge with secret handshakes. If that doesn't fuck your head up, nothing will. And then we also have the Dogon, who claim to have been in contact with extraterrestrials from Sirius that had accurate star charts that we just were mapping with Hubble a few years ago. So, you know, and there's more. I'm not recalling everything off the top of my head, but Timothy Leary also, you know, a lot of people say he was a government agent or whatever. It's all stupid. He was far more important than Terence McKenna and far more honest. So I think it's a great tragedy that he's been forgotten as well. He was a tremendously, tremendously important person. In fact, I wouldn't throw the word prophet around really, but I would say that it applies to Timothy Leary if it applies to anyone. So, you know, but in the modern arena, everyone has got issues that are pretty much unforgivable. I mean, in a lot of ways, Teal Swan is sort of a kindred spirit, except that her ego is so big that she's very reckless. One thing that's really important is to remember that all of these things are true and false, and it is both true and false to say that they are true and false, that everything contains its contradiction, and that certainty is not possible. For example, in the realm of reincarnation, even if you have accurate memories that you're able to confirm, which I have had that experience down to, you know, very, very specific details, geneticists have proven that we can remember our ancestors' memories. And I'm English, and this person was English. So it could be ancestral memory. We could have a common ancestor. There's also the possibility of a zero-point field or Akashic record. And they say that in quantum, in the realm of quantum particles, no information is lost. So we actually have scientific evidence there's something like an Akashic record. There's also the possibility of just a collective mind. So even if you're able to remember things that you're able to prove from a deceased person's life, it's not proof of reincarnation. So in the case of Teal Swan, you know, she's so confident in her enlightenment that she has told suicidal people that suicide is just a reset. She might be right, but to be so confident that you're going to actually say that to suicidal people, and a couple of them did kill themselves. So, you know, like, A lot of stuff that she says, I'm really impressed by, and I really like her. But her ego is completely out of control. She's an abusive narcissist. I mean, it just seems like in this modern paradigm, it's really difficult to find anyone that I can really get behind. Also, it seems like just about everyone has gone off the rails on the Wuchu train. There is a science and an art to spirituality. And it is something that you need to navigate with the same set of skills that you use to navigate the real world, the same level of critical thinking, the same level of skepticism. And very few people seem to be inclined to use that approach. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of legit people, and when I have events, I have certain shamans come, and they're definitely as solid as they get. But as far as whether ayahuasca can legitimately connect you to higher realms of consciousness, it certainly can. But there are a lot of misconceptions about ayahuasca and what it can do, and a lot of that is motivated by people that have gotten involved that have an agenda of one kind or another. So it's important to remember that what ayahuasca really does is adapt you to your environment. It does not want you to become necessarily a peaceful vegan. I actually learned from the Shuar, who removed the heads of their enemies, removed the skin, and shrunk the skulls and the skin and then put them back together, sewed the eyes, nose, and mouth closed in order to trap the spirit of the enemy. They also believe that all illness is caused by something called zinsak, which is like a dart that is sent by a shaman, and you have to buy them from other shaman. And what do you think you buy them with? Women from the other tribes that you have gone and speared all the males and stolen all the women. So, if you look historically at the behavior of ayahuasca drinking tribes, it's not consistent with what the ayahuasca industry tells you ayahuasca does for you. The reality is that life feeds on life, and, ayahuasca seems to be a connection to the dark feminine, and all psychedelics, in my opinion, remove or reduce the filtration system in our consciousness, right? Because we perceive like less than 1% of the full spectrum of light. So different psychedelics bring down different wavelengths of this filter. 5-MeO DMT seems to bring the whole entire filter down completely temporarily, which is wild. So ayahuasca brings down a lot of the filtration and connects you with a larger consciousness. And it is true that I've never been lied to by a DMT entity or an ayahuasca entity, and I have been routinely given information that turned out to be correct that no one could have known, with very specific details, names. I once received a certain amount of money from a certain person, and it was about 5 minutes after I smoked DMT, and as the vision was closing, this DMT entity stuck its head out of the closing hole of the vision and said, this aunt sent you exactly this amount of money. And as soon as the vision was gone, my phone beeped, and it was that aunt saying that she had just sent me money, and I had not sent out distress signals. It was not normal for her to send me money. That sort of thing has happened a number of times. He's asking if I'm a shaman. That is a loaded question, and it depends on what you mean. The word shaman is actually from the Sungus tribe in Siberia, who is a phlegaric using group, and Mircea Eliade is the person that is generally credited with applying it to people that consume psychoactive substances in order to divine or to heal. I have studied with indigenous people from several tribes for a number of years, and the Quechua actually, where I lived in the jungle, did apply the title of maestro to me, so people in the community referred to me as maestro, which means that they acknowledged me as a shaman. And here, the Quechua in this village have, much to my surprise, applied a name that I cannot even remember how to pronounce. I'd never heard it before, which is the highest office, I guess, of like Incan plant doctor. So, I mean, if acknowledgement from indigenous people of that title is the qualifier, then I guess the answer is yes. And in my opinion, a shaman is really just a person that has established a dialogue with the universal mind that is authentic. And I do feel like I have had that since I was a child. So, you know, like I said, it's a loaded question, but according to some criteria, I guess I could use that title. Yeah, I mean, most of these centers, though, I mean, I don't really advise that. It's a really difficult thing to navigate at this point. A lot of the big centers have actually become cults. There's a lot of weirdness out there in the world. So, like I said, my events are legit, and that's all I can really say about that. I've never been to a retreat. So without firsthand experience, I wouldn't talk about anything. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons I don't like Sadhguru, other than the fact that he murdered his wife and then tried to use it to bolster his reputation, to validate himself as a guru, which was one of the most twisted things I've ever heard in my life. He killed her in order to be with a young follower in his ashram, and propped her dead body up and pretended like she had transcended because she wanted to, even though she had like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and then burned the body even though it wasn't part of his tradition when the police and the father asked for it, and then fled the country. So, you know, but another thing that he did is that someone asked him whether ayahuasca could lead to enlightenment, and even though he has never drank it, he answered. And there is no enlightened person on this planet that will answer a question that they do not have direct experience. That is one, you know, if you see someone that claims to be enlightened talking about something that they have no direct experience of, you know they're a fraud. Period. End of story. Yeah, Sadhguru is a piece of shit. The only guru like that I actually like is Osho. That guy was fucking cool. He was honest, you know. I mean, people criticize the fact that he had all these Bentleys and stuff, but to me, the universe is about, you know, being fully conscious and then experiencing the most extraordinary things you can, you know, the peak experiences, packing them in as much as you possibly can. And driving a Lamborghini down Highway 1 in California is definitely one of those things. If you want a Lamborghini because you want a status symbol and you are doing it out of ego and looking for validation, that's a different story. But if you are fully conscious and you understand what you're doing on this planet, it makes total sense that you would want to experience all of these high-end things. You know, I don't judge anyone for that. In fact, I love Lamborghinis and 5-star restaurants, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't know anything about Aaron Doughty. Yeah, well, just like, subscribe. I'm just trying to flesh out the details with the woman at the Blue Lotus, and then we are good to go. What's the purpose of an entity telling you something trivial like that? Like what? Oh, you mean about the aunt sending me money? The purpose of it is just to demonstrate that it's real, you know, because it's like, one of the things that's wrong with religion is the idea that you should just have faith in something with no evidence, that's commendable, right? That's propaganda. That's a psyop. That's trying to condition you to be a fucking moron, really, you know? So if there is a higher consciousness, if there is a higher awareness, giving you reason to believe in that is totally an obligation of that entity. It doesn't matter how they do it, you know. I mean, that's a trivial example, but I was also told that my mom went into my partner's womb during an ayahuasca ceremony after she committed suicide, and then we found out she was pregnant 10 days later. You know what I mean? So it's not always trivial, but that's the thing, there should be some offer of evidence and a reason for you to believe. It's an insult to your intelligence to say you should believe this just because you're supposed to, and then, it's commendable to have faith. Faith is our ability to believe that which we know to be untrue. He's asking if I believe in reincarnation. I had an experience where I knew the books of a certain author inside and out before I ever read them. I had all the same habits. I smoked pre tobacco and no other as he did. I bedded a girl on my mother's bed at 15, and an earring was left in her bed, and he did the same thing at the same age. He also ate the same breakfast, made his coffee the same way, 2 eggs, salt, coffee, with enough sugar to stand a spoon, and opium in my case, but heroin in his case, in the morning with his breakfast. Wore a smoking jacket during this breakfast ritual, and on and on and on and on and on. Think just like him. But as I was saying before, because we can have ancestral memories, and I'm English and so is he, it could be just that I am, tapping into that genetic reservoir. It could also be that there is a quantum field. There is no information is lost at the quantum level, so I could be just getting it from the collective mind, or the Akashic record. There could be a collective mind in the sense of just a shared memory reservoir. So there's no belief. You can't believe in these things. There are possibilities, but I don't believe in belief. Belief is the death of intelligence. Another really interesting theory is the quantum loop theory. So many, many years ago, I had this sort of vision of how the universe started as nothing, and then it had a thought. And that thought was awareness, basically, the I am, the hey, the Jews call it, I am that I am. And the logos, the word, was actually the vibration of the electromagnetic wave that gave rise to the light, that gave rise to consciousness. Which order it happened in is, chicken or the egg, I don't know. But basically, that was the beginning of the process, and so it fulfills all the possibilities that are available to it without having to override any of the laws of creation. And then once all of those are fulfilled, the process reverses, and the light consumes itself and collapses back into the singularity, and then once it's compressed enough, the energy expands again, and the process starts over. And so I thought of it as the Phoenix process, and a few years ago, a theory in quantum physics that is exactly the same thing started to gain ground called quantum loop theory. So one of the possibilities, I think, is that we actually live the same life over and over and over again, but one of the fundamental laws of the universe is that there is an exception to every rule, and that there's chaos. So, for example, if you do a quantum experiment 100 billion times, which you can do because they do them in quantum time, like 100 billionths of a second or whatever, so you can do them a whole shit ton of times in a second, you'll get the same result, almost a billion times in a row, and then once you'll get a different result. So I think those tiny variations could add up to some fluctuations. So it's not exactly the same life over and over again. And then if you think about entrainment, which is the law that lower cycles entrain with the higher. So if you have 2 heartbeats laying next to each other, one of them's faster, the slower one will sync with the higher. Electromagnetic pulses do it, clocks do it, everything does it. So whatever is the prima mobile, the highest cycle at any given time, all of the other things in the universe that cycle are going up with it. So I'm hoping that if this quantum loop theory is correct, that there are at least minute improvements with each cycle, and that we're not actually doomed to repetition. But that's probably the leading possibility in my mind for a number of reasons. What's going on, Alpha Draconian? Man, I had decided that I was going to shut this down a while ago, and now everyone's piling on, which is fine. I got a big bag of cocoa. We can go all night. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron, which gives you access to 5 years of material that the public doesn't have, and also access to our private voice chats every Monday night at 7:30. The first one last week was mind-blowing, and not talking about myself. The entire group, every single person, is truly extraordinary. Let me look back through. So are all these scriptures allegorical? Can you explain the upper world, middle world, and lower world? What does my diet consist of? All right, we're getting way ahead of me with the questions here. Also, ayahuasca made a very convincing case. Speaking of the reincarnation, he was asking if we also have multiple lives. I had this vision of this like purple geisha thing with horns, not demonic, it just happened to have horns. Driving home from this meeting with these Native Americans in 2010, and it was just a still image, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And so some years later, my girlfriend told me when I was playing guitar, she would see something similar to that hovering behind me, but I didn't put it together, right? And then a guy that I was jamming with said, hey man, I got something to tell you. There's this purple demon-looking thing that hovers behind you. I've seen it like 3 times when you're playing guitar. A week after that, this Maori kid at a bar, I was leaving, and he's like, hey man, there's this, and I'm like, yeah, I know, purple demon thing floating behind me when I play sometimes. And so, I didn't think that much of it, because you really just can't do that if you want to stay sane. And then I drank ayahuasca like a year later, and I was walking back from the bathroom, and suddenly that thing appeared in front of me, and the ayahuasca spirit said, would you like to know what that is? And I was like, yes. And she said, well, you know how one object can be in 2 places? It's not 2 objects. Physicists can do this in a laboratory. Souls are like that as well, and this is you as you exist on a gas giant near Sirius B that didn't become a red dwarf star because of the influence of the other 2 stars. And then this was published like a week after the ceremony. So, the possibility that we are living multiple lives simultaneously, it definitely is not off the table. My diet consists of goat, blue-green algae from the high country lakes here that I just made a superfood salad video about. That it's truly extraordinary. A lot of seaweed, a lot of sprouts, microgreens, sheep balls, cow testicles, liver, lots of organ meats, figs, lots of figs, anything that's anti-inflammatory, lots and lots of anti-inflammatory stuff, lots of omegas, and things with choline that cause fats to transit through the brain, which improves cognition. Colloidal gold is really important. Not sure what you mean by the upper world, middle world, and lower world. There are a lot of different variations on that kind of idea, like the Kabbalistic layers of the soul, the Nefesh, the Ruach, and so on. So in the Jewish mystical sense, basically it's just, you could think of it as like the animal level of the soul, instincts and sexuality and all that sort of stuff, and then the intellect and, on and on. But I can't really give a great answer to that because I'm not sure what you mean. So he's asking me about the allegories in Scripture. I'm not sure what Scriptures you mean, but in the case of Christianity, for example, the sun, Jesus is obviously the sun, but there is a deeper level that, consciousness comes from light. And so the reason that these religions have been so tenacious and people resonate with them is that the truth, if the truth can be told so as to be understood, it will be believed, right? So a pope actually said this about Christianity, that the people need the truth cloaked in myth. So they take the truth and they wrap it in this allegorical fable, and then unfortunately usually integrate things into it that make it a tool for actually precluding real spiritual experience. So, these religions are basically designed to resonate with people to the extent that they know there's something there, but then also to trap them in dogma and faith and prevent them from actually having real spiritual experiences. Yeah, the Sefer Yetzirah definitely goes into, but it's four levels, not three. Yeah, well, we have all of eternity, so. I'm going to stay in Peru for a while. I mean, I feel like the political climate around the world is pretty fucking scary right now. And I know how to survive in the jungle, which actually isn't hard at all. There's so much food and fruit and psychoactive plants and medicine and everything you could ever need. The temperature's always just right. Even here in the Andes, if you go for a walk up the road behind my house, it's a little colder, but it doesn't freeze at this elevation. Pretty much always a spring day, and there's all kinds of food. Slippery jack mushrooms blanket the ground even during the dry season up high, and there are wild passion flowers or passion fruits, blackberries, salco, which is an extraordinarily delicious Okay, so he's talking about getting attacked by negative energies. There's a couple things to consider. One of them is that there have been at least 50 studies that I'm able to track down all over the world throughout 5 decades that have all came to the same conclusion about demons. The only people that are affected by demons are people that live in cultures that believe in them, ever. So, a lot of people don't like to hear that because the idea of spiritual attachments and negative entities and all of this sort of thing gives people spiritual bypassing opportunities and a crutch, something to blame all of their problems on. It also creates an opportunity for people with a profit motive to convince people they can wiggle their fingers around and pull a demon out of you for $1,500. And then this person goes on believing that they're healed and they're actually worse than ever. You know what I mean? But aside from all that, playing devil's advocate and saying that if these things are real or if you're having trouble with legitimately negative energies coming from other people, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram is absolutely the cure for this. It is the most exquisite ritual ever conceived of, in my opinion, and the most important. And even if magic is totally fake and totally imaginary, as just a tool for meditation or for engineering your being and defining your experience every single day and then banishing. So you do an invoking where you're drawing the energies into your microcosm that you want to be there throughout your day, and then you are banishing them at night every day. And I have videos where I go into detail about it. I don't really want to break the whole thing down right now. But if you do this invoking in the morning and banishing at night, it's just such a tremendously powerful way to become the god of your world. You're a god or a goddess, act like one, and that requires you to create a universe, a microcosm, by casting a circle, creating 4 points of stability in that circle that represent the 4 fundamental forces of physics, which give stability to the universe, and they represent the 4 elements, which give manifestation to that stability and symmetry, and then the 4 directions, which you associate, the intellect with the air, and sexuality and creativity with the fire, and stability and fertility and abundance with the earth, and so on, emotions with the water. So, you create stability in all these levels of your creation, and the directions give you an opportunity to compress a bunch of information. So emotion and the 4 fundamental forces of physics, all these things become one thing, and so you get the idea. You create your universe and you define it and you clean it up every single day for 2 years, and your universe will look more or less like you want it to by the time you're done with all of this. Also, it always begins with the 4-fold breath. And so the breath is symbolic of the life force, And 4 is the number of stability. So you go through this process of creating stability in your breath or in your prana. And the mind works in symbols. So that breathing exercise that you open the ritual with is tremendously powerful. And then you can also add the middle pillar, which is a process by which you visualize the light of Kether, the crown, the divine bubble above your head, and you bring that light down into your throat chakra, or the sephira of Da'at, and you remind yourself that you're integrating this divine knowledge or your higher self, the highest possible expression of yourself, to regulate your speech and your breath. And then you draw it down into your heart. And there is also a vibration of a God name. There are different God names for each of these sephira or chakras. They correspond to regulate your emotions, and then down to your crotch to regulate your creativity and sexuality, and then down to your feet to guide your steps. And so if you combine the middle pillar with the invoking and banishing, I mean, even if you don't believe in magic, it's just all the way fucking gangster from head to toe. So definitely a really powerful solution to any kind of energetic disturbance or lack of focus or any of these sort of maladies. Michelle J. is asking, what is up with the use of occult symbols with musicians? You have to remember that occult just means hidden. And in my experience and in my opinion, enlightenment is not necessarily about becoming all perfect and pure and peaceful. It can be, but everything that exists along a spectrum. And so the purpose of the universe is to fulfill every possibility at every vector. So somewhere on the frequency or on the spectrum, you're going to have somebody that is totally good and totally enlightened, and someone that is totally evil and totally enlightened. The universal mind, the consciousness that lies behind it, is the totality of all of that. And so, the occult symbols and the power that comes from piercing the veil, which you could think of as, in the same way that we have a conscious and subconscious, the universe has, this side of the veil and the other side of the veil. And all creative, expressions of any substance come from piercing that veil. So, Tool, for example, is a heavily occult-informed band. But if you think they're evil, you're probably stupid. You know what I mean? They're obviously more or less trying to do something positive. So, when you ask me generally, like, what's up with these musicians and these occult symbols and stuff, some of them are using it just for publicity and to add mystique. Some of them are using it for left-hand path, personal gain and exploitation and all of that stuff. And some of them are using it to connect with the universe on a deeper level in order to create a higher expression of art. So it depends on the individual. These things are just tools. And occult symbols really are just the purpose of them is to compress information into a smaller, bite-sized, allegorical or metaphorical symbol. Also, it's true, I think, that there is a collective mind. And a lot of these symbols have been in use for thousands and thousands of years. And so they have accumulated power just from use by people. So one of the most important things I think to remember about this is that people are far too accepting of alternative narratives, not realizing that they don't need to brainwash the muggles and the normies. They're already brainwashed. So most of the propaganda ends up being targeted at the revolutionaries and the people on the fringe, because that's who they need to delude. And so a lot of the things that actually would be your most powerful assets, you are being convinced that they are evil. And it's being done in such a way that you think that you are getting this information from people who are trying to take down Babylon, when in fact, it's Babylon that is filling your head with this shit. So it's a sticky swamp, easy to get lost in. The truthers on YouTube are more or less talking out of their ass. I mean, here's something really crazy that you can do yourself. Google the Adam Weishaupt papers, because when the founder of the Illuminati was arrested, they seized his private writings from his sock drawer. And if you go and read them, you're going to be like, how do we vote for this guy for president of Earth? You know what I mean? They have convinced you that the most powerful liberators on the planet are the ultimate enemy. Freemasonry. Anybody that's watched my secret streams knows there's nothing in this book that any of you out there would object to. Every single one of you would be 100% on board with it. I mean, you think about all these things people say are symbols of the Illuminati. The Illuminati only had two symbols: a circle with a dot in the center and the all-seeing eye. That's it. So where is this record that ties these symbols to the Illuminati? Where is it? Show me. Where any of you seen any evidence that any of that stuff is actually tied to the historical Illuminati, other than just, trust me, bro? That's all these guys have. Trust me, bro. Yes, that is my email in the bio. Let me check in with the other chat. Sorry, I've been ignoring these guys. What do I think about the Goetia? I make it a habit not to speak about things that I don't have any direct experience of, but I think that, to paraphrase Aleister Crowley, or Robert Anton Wilson, who was paraphrasing Aleister Crowley when he said this, the demons of Aleister Crowley's rituals are real, but they're not real in the same way that the IRS is real. So, I think that it's best, because there's one soul divided for the sake of union, right? But that division itself is an illusion. So there is nothing out there that isn't in here. So there's no reason to give these things external existence, because you just give them power by doing that. So when a magician invokes a demon, say it's greed, it is possible to transmute this negative greed into positive ambition. And that is what's meant when you say that you're going to constrain this demon to your will, right? You could also make it worse if that's your objective. And you have to understand that real magicians, whether they're shamans or we're talking about the Western mystery tradition, you know that what you're actually doing is using natural law with the skill of an adept. So the reason that you can be confident that you can constrain a demon to your will, it's the same reason that you can constrain a dog to your will. It's the law of entrainment. Things of a lower cycle are compelled by the laws of the universe to entrain with things of a higher cycle. And so, that is the fundamental knowledge that you need to navigate these things. I've never really felt the need or the inclination to really dive into something like the Goetia. I think my camera just, what the hell? No, it's still working. Man, I really do have a ghost in the machine. Holy shit, it's 12:30. Oh, he's asking how I survived 3 days. It was 3 nights and 4 days, actually. I'm 44, almost 45. how I survived 3 days and 4 nights, or 4 days and 3 nights. So I was picking black trumpet mushrooms, and I didn't notice in my excitement that I had gotten around to the back side of the huckleberry bushes, and I went down the wrong side of the mountain. I got stalked by a mountain lion. Like, it came super close to me. There were these tall reed grasses. So when I realized that I wasn't getting out that night, I crawled into the reed grasses to break the wind, and they were full of ticks, which was horrible. I had ticks all over me, and there's tons of Lyme's disease in Mendocino County, which is where I was. And it was November on the coast of Northern California, so it got pretty fucking cold. And so I'm curled up in this reed grass, and earlier I had heard a mountain lion cub making some noise, like off, far enough away that I didn't care, really. But the mama was at least wondering what I was doing, and she came down and paced around the reed grass, which was only a little bit wider than I was tall, for like 30 minutes, just like mumbling and muttering, like, just making noises like it just kind of wanted to kill me, but just didn't really know, you know what I mean? Just like obviously distressed, just like muttering, I don't know, mountain lion muttering, walking around the grass. And so the next day I got up and I walked and walked and walked. I found a road, and I thought it would go to the highway eventually, like an old logging road. And I went way down, and I realized I wasn't getting out, and I was drinking out of leaves that had caught moisture in the night and chewing pine needles for vitamin C. And there were hedgehog mushrooms and stuff. They were impossible to eat. Actually, hedgehog mushrooms have a peppery substance in them that if you don't cook them first, it's terrible. And I didn't know that because I'd always cooked them, because you always cook wild mushrooms. But I realized, oh wow, this is a huge mushroom. I can squeeze it in my mouth and get water. And it was full of this horrible peppery chemical, and that sucked. And so I walked way down to the river, and I realized I couldn't go any further. So I turned around, and there was a mountain lion print inside of my boot print, like fresh right behind me. So the cat was still following me the next day. So I'm out there for 3 nights, knowing this cat is like stalking me. The last night I found they call them widows. No, they're honeycombs where the redwood fell and it leaves a big depression, and I just put some sticks across the top and covered it in debris to keep warm. And then the next day I heard a truck honk, and I realized the entire time the highway had been just on the other side of the ridge, and I hadn't been really lost at all. It was pretty lame, honestly, to realize that I had just kind of panicked, and that there just wasn't any traffic, so I didn't hear the highway, so I thought it wasn't there. So I climbed up to the top of the ridge, and I realized I've been walking for days back and forth, and my car could be anywhere, and I looked, and my Beamer I had a BMW X5 at the time, and it was right there below me, so I just jumped down, and I kept a pill of morphine in my glove box for emergencies. And so, because I had barely slept like 1 or 2 hours, I had probably borderline hypothermia. I ate half of that morphine pill and drove to the hospital, and they're like, "You're pretty hydrated and fine, and just go home." And I picked enough mushrooms. Actually, after I ate the morphine, I went back up the hill and picked a bunch of mushrooms because I didn't have any money with me, and I wanted a hamburger. So I picked enough mushrooms to take them to the mushroom buyer at the hotels. They have them all over the place during the mushroom picking season, and sold enough mushrooms to get a hamburger. And so that's that story. Yeah, and I have suffered from some sort of chronic fatigue-like syndrome for many years. But okay, guys, it is late now. Actually, despite the cocoa starting to get tired. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Please consider supporting the channel through some kind of avenue, because we are demonetized and deprioritized, and it is very difficult to fund my projects without money. Believe it or not, people that provide services like, guides going into ruins and stuff, they, for some reason, want to get paid for their services. I don't know what it's about, but we do appreciate support. Also, consider sharing and joining the Patreon, where you can access all sorts of stuff that the outer circle cannot. So thank you so much, and I will see you guys again soon.